The sister of the baguette is the country bread, or pain de campagne. The dough is baked into a multitude of shapes, reflecting different origins, different traditions. The formula is similar to the baguette, but about 1/10 of the flour is rye flour. The formula for the pre-fermented dough is the same as for the baguette. All of the formulas will be repeated at the end of the program, along with ones listing the percentages of each ingredient. The method of production parallels that of the baguette. The professor chose the spiral mixer to demonstrate the making of this dough. Although he ordinarily recommends the use of an autolyse, the large proportion of pâte fermentée he adds to this dough provides the same benefit as an autolyse.
After the basic ingredients are blended and incorporated, we're going to add the pieces of pâte fermentée.
So we're going to incorporate the pâte fermentée.
It is better to cut it into small pieces and add it little by little.
You cannot put all together. We're going to incorporate the pâte fermentée. So
using this mixer in second speed, the dough will mix about 3 to 4 minutes.
The temperature should be 24 degrees centigrade, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The dough is covered at this point for the first fermentation of 1 hour.
And you cut with fingers.
Then it is ready for the dividing and molding.
Scraper, all right? Is a knife.
The professor will be making various shapes, including wreaths, fondue, buttercups, and mushrooms, all of which are made from the pain de campagne dough.
This piece will become pain fondue with a ring or horseshoe shape. It has a 2-step molding process. First, we form the long dough piece of 650 grams and let it rest. Next, we turn our attention to the wreath or crown or couronne, which is 800 grams. You round the dough balls used for this crown fairly tightly. They are about 85 grams. The balls should be very smooth. One of the 7 dough balls gets rolled into a flat patty. This is the basket that we use to make the crown. Put the flat piece in the basket. You brush a little oil over the rim of the flat dough piece to keep the next piece of dough from sticking to it. This creates definition in the finished loaf. Then place the balls in the basket. The flat piece of dough is then scored, and a triangular flap is laid over each one of the dough balls. Now, back to the fondue, which has been resting. Gently roll out a groove in the center of the dough piece. In the finished loaf, this will look like a crack, which is what fondue means in French. Then gently flour the area so that the sides don't stick together. Lay the piece gently upside down in the circular basket and pinch the 2 ends together. When the ends are pinched together, a crown or ring is formed. When they are left open, a horseshoe shape is formed. We are now working on the bouton d'or, or buttercup, 650 grams total. The dough piece is divided with the rolling pin from side to side in the shape of a 4-leaf clover.
Voilà. Alors on va mettre un peu d'huile. Voilà. Alors on va... Oil. Voilà, voilà.
A round ball, about 85 grams, is placed in the center with a little oil applied so the sections don't stick.
Au milieu, et on relève avec ses doigts le majeur, les deux majeurs et les deux pouces.
Then the piece is flipped upside down in a round basket and left to proof. The mushroom shapes require a small round dough ball and a small flattened piece of dough that will be the lid. Again, a little oil so it doesn't stick to create definition in the final product. A finger is pressed into the middle. The piece is then turned and proofed upside down. In the area where I come from, these were called auvergnats because they looked like the hats that people from that city used to wear. Now for the shape of the basic pain de campagne, the 450-gram bouleau, oval-shaped bread with one cut down the middle. The basic molding is similar to the baguette. The seams must be well melded without overworking the dough. One side of this bread was fatter than the other, so cup your hands and roll out the side to even it out. One of the most important things in molding the bread is not to degas it excessively. The structure that forms because of the carbon dioxide gas in the dough piece is what gives the bread its well-aerated, irregular hold structure. It is this hold structure and nice open texture that gives the bread its agreeable chewiness.
The professor feels that the current tendency to put an excessive amount of plain flour on the surface of the bread before baking in an attempt to create a rustic look inhibits the color, crispness, and taste of the crust from developing in the oven. The proofing, scoring, and baking of the pain de campagne are as important as they are to the baguette. The pain de campagne evokes images of a rustic setting in a time past, long before the baguette made its debut in Paris. In fact, there are rural areas in France where the pain de campagne is still the bread used for daily consumption.
After baking pain de campagne, it is a good idea to let it sit up to 12 hours to improve the flavor. The interior texture of the bread is such an important element of its taste that you can't separate the two.
Although baguettes and pain de campagne are considered simple traditional breads, each step along the way affects the finished bread. However, the steps and formulas suggested in these tapes must be considered guidelines and ranges, and experience and feel should be considered a part of any formula for good bread. Even the professor is still experimenting. The formula for the pre-fermented dough, or pâte fermentée, the baguette, and the pain de campagne can be studied at this time, especially if one pauses the tape. First, pre-fermented dough. Multiples of the formula can be used if more pâte fermentée is called for in the bread being made. Percentages shown are of the total weight of the flour added in the final dough. Now the baguette. For the purpose of simplification, the yields of American and metric measures given are not equivalent. The amount of water and the mix times may vary with the flour and type of mixer used. The amount of pre-fermented dough can be varied in the baguette from 45% up to 170% of the weight of the flour added in the final dough. And pain de campagne, or country bread. Likewise, the amount of pre-fermented dough in the pain de campagne can vary from 170% down to 45% of the flour weight. The next program in the series will be devoted to the baking of pain au levain, sourdough bread, pain de seigle, rye bread, and pain de mie, or pan bread.